Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT service business, whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go and introduce my co-host, my partner in crime. Who am I speaking about? None other than Mr. Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology. Rick, how are you today?
I'm doing good today, my friend. How are you?
You know, there's a saying I like to say, and this will have relevance to this episode, is that in Spanish it's ahí, allá y over. And what that means is that I'm all over the place, my friend. All over the place. So, but before we go into, I'm excited for our guest today, and I'll go into that a little bit here shortly. But it's our, housekeeping, our couple announcements that we have to do because it wouldn't be for these people here to be able to run and keep the lights on that are going on in this fine podcast. Who are we talking about? Well, we want to welcome our sponsors of this episode, Huntress. Huntress allows you to deploy, manage detection, and response for endpoints and identities in minutes. Powered by a custom-built technology for SMBs and the expert analysts in their 24/7 Security Operations Center, or SOC. Not the medias, actually SOC, S-O-C. Head over to huntress.com/unplugged to find out more. And also SuperOps. SuperOps is the AI-powered PSA and RMM platform designed for faster growing MSPs. They provide a lean and powerful way to engage with clients and to grow your revenue. Head over to the link in the show notes to start your trial today. That's superops.ai, and we appreciate them helping out and sponsoring this episode. But Rick, there's more.
There's
What
more.
are we talking about? And that's our favorite thing. That's TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged will be in the greater Washington, D.C. area September 12th to the 14th at the hotel at Arundel Preserve. It is our annual gathering of IT business owners, and it is fast approaching. Yes, it's only probably about a good now 6 months away, but it is rapidly going for us. Join us for join like-minded business owners for a weekend pack of resources to help your IT business thrive. Your ticket includes 25 plus educational sessions, two networking events and after-hours entertainment, all expo hall meals, refreshments, and happy hours, automatic entrance, and all the generous giveaways and raffles that will be happening during these 2 days. And three, if you count our nice welcome reception and a quick announcement that will be happening soon. Maybe a pre-day, maybe not. Gotta stay tuned. Get your ticket. But the most important piece about it all is you will get to walk away with concrete action items to take your business to the next level. Go ahead and get your discount tickets. Early bird is over, but you can still get discounted tickets until May 31st. Head over to techconunplugged.com, and I look forward to seeing you there. Rick, anything you want to add on about TechCon Unplugged?
The only thing I want to say is this, guys. This is our fifth TechCon Unplugged. So those who have been there for a while, you know what kind of event this is. But we're planning some special things this year to mark number 5. So you don't want to miss it. So be there. Like Paco said, go get your tickets at techconunplugged.com.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Rick, I'm super excited to announce this guest. This is a little bit close to heart for me. And we're going to do this episode a little bit differently as well. Why, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Well, so I met this person at a event called Channel Futures, which me and Rick will actually be there this year for the Channel Futures MSP Summit and the Channel Futures Leadership Expo. We will be there, and this is the first that we'll be announcing it. We will be podcasting. There will be some live sessions. There will be some recordings. It's going to be all around fun in the SuperOps AI arena. So if you're interested, head over to Channel Futures. We probably can sneak you in. You let us know. We'll see what we can make happen. But it's going to be on May 11th to the 14th over in Las Vegas at the Venetian. It's going to be a great time. But I met this person at the MSP Summit last year, and I was in a roundtable with my good friend who now has since retired. Well wishes, Jeff O'Hare, who really assembled a lot of the Next Gen 101 award winners, and to really understand, where are they at with their business? How are they doing things and things of that nature? And so as we had a discussion, this person replied and saying, yes, she introduced herself and she says she's from the lovely island of Puerto Rico. And for all of those who know, I am of Puerto Rican descent. Every time I meet someone that's from Puerto Rico, it immediately means that we're family. So who am I referring to? I am talking about Mariel Verges, the Director of Sales and Marketing over at Onuvo. Mariel, how are you today?
I am good. Thank you, Paco. ¿Cómo estás tú?
Mira, aquí, allá, y over there, como yo dije antes, so todo está bien. And so what I mentioned earlier in the episode is the way that this is going to be a little bit different is we will be doing this episode in Spanglish. So we will be doing some parts in Spanish, we will be doing some parts in English, but we will make sure you, the listener, and our good host Rick Smith stays along and we can make sure to chime in and have an immersive conversation. But we're not only just here to know more about Mariel and what she's doing at her MSP in Puerto Rico, because I love to hear about these type of stories. But really, we're going to talk about the topic of effective sales strategies for MSPs. I think there's a great opportunity, and as we hear Mariela's story on how she has approached on the island, where that this is not so much a foreign concept, but a concept that requires education. So there should be some lessons to here to be picked up. And again, we're going to make sure we do our best to make sure everyone is included on this. But Mariel, gracias por venir. I appreciate you coming in here. But why don't we start off with a little bit of an introduction and your origin story, su historia de origen.
Claro, claro que sí. Pues muchas gracias a todos nuevamente y a Rick también. Para mí es un honor estar aquí compartiendo con todos ustedes y compartiendo un poquito sobre mi historia, la historia, ¿verdad?, de Onuvo aquí en la isla. Básicamente mi nombre es, ¿verdad?, ya Mariel, y llevo en la industria unos 10 años, en la industria de tecnología, en la industria de MSP unos 5 ya. Yo comencé trabajando para Claro Puerto Rico. Yo sé que muchos de ustedes conocen, ¿verdad?, de la empresa de telecomunicaciones. Es una empresa súper grande aquí en la isla, pero también en las demás partes del mundo, ¿verdad?, que también se encuentra. Ahí comencé como ejecutiva de cuentas en el área comercial. Aprendí muchísimo sobre, ¿verdad?, telecomunicaciones, cómo realmente se hacían las cosas. A mí recuerdo que me encantaba irme con los técnicos al field para yo entender por qué era, ¿verdad?, que las cosas pasaban y no solamente ir a vender un servicio, sino que entender por qué eso se implementaba, y de verdad que eso me abrió muchas puertas. Este, y de ahí el resto es historia, como decimos aquí en Puerto Rico. Luego pasé a trabajar en otro integrador, y entonces conocí muchas marcas, muchos clientes que todavía mantengo, ¿verdad?, desde esos comienzos, y entonces aquí ya 5 años en Onuvo, gracias a Dios, ahora trabajando la parte de desarrollo, ¿verdad?, en ventas y también mercadeo. Pero así, ya 10 añitos, rápido, volando, se pasa el tiempo.
Gotcha. So basically being 10 years there, and really just driving the sales and marketing portion of the business and really just doing more. I understand that you are a woman of many hats, many gorras. Está haciendo todas las cosas que está ahí en el MSP. Una pregunta que voy a tener para ti is it you or is it the MSP está en Guaynabo? En Guaynabo.
Pues mira, el MSP ahora mismo se encuentra en Guaynabo.
En
Nosotros
Guaynabo.
estamos relocalizando
Okay.
las operaciones para San Juan, pero como quiera vamos a estar en el área metropolitana de la isla. Así que sí.
Okay, okay. So perfect. So in the city, everyone's essentially remote. You mentioned obviously the San Juan, which is the capital of Puerto Rico. The reason why I asked is because my father is actually from Yabucoa. So for those that are listening, basically the relevancy of where the island is, Guaynabo is actually a little bit more north and probably a little bit in the middle slash in central of the island, whereas where my descendants are from are actually in the southwest side of the island as well. So when the hurricane hit, Yabucoa was actually one of the first cities to get hit when Hurricane Maria happened back, I think it was in 2020, if I recall correctly. Very devastating time for the island, and I definitely want to talk a little bit about that as well. But Mariel, so you mentioned obviously que todos son remote and really trying to drive that, and I think that's great because I son mucho MSPs that have been around for a while. Voy a tener two type of frame of minds, dos clases de mente de, either todo necesita que llegar en la oficina, they have to be in the office, or que puede hacerlo remote because that's where the world is going. There is a way of everyone is looking to go remote. Rick, when it comes to being a remote workforce, and I think you are investigating this for yourselves and how to make that work for not only internally, but how you support, what is your take on being able to support those that may not be locally to yourself?
Well, it's definitely a move we're making now. We're actually doing two things. We're having support come from someplace else, but we are also trying to, as we branch out, we're trying to do that as well to have support. So it's important, and it's now a growing part of our business, but it's also a necessity. Everyone is now, we've learned, COVID taught us all that you don't have to be in a physical location to do your job, right? To be successful. In the tech world, we've already, we were a little ahead of that curve anyway with how we do remote support, how we do business. But now we've really learned that we can have a serious global reach from wherever we are, and that's the change here. So I just want to say this. I'm laughing at, I'm smiling at the conversation that we're having, because I can pick up about 90% of this. And what I feel like is when we talk to our clients sometimes and we speak in tech speak, so they hear every 3 words and they try to put it together. And I just think that's funny, and that's why I keep laughing, because I get it, I'm listening, and then I have to wait and then put together the rest of what Mariel says. So then I can put it all together and figure it out. And that's just my New York Spanglish.
So yeah, that's funny, because it's two frame of minds to that, right? Is one, there's actually 2 types of Spanish, right? It's the sense of conversational Spanish that you would have on a day-to-day basis, and we can go through there, and they, I don't agree with it, but they say that Puerto Ricans are Spanish is the more cut up version of Spanish. I disagree. We just have our own style, with flair, but that's what I say. But there's the second piece of trying to explain technology in a sense as well. And that's a whole nother conversation. So, even though for someone that's a native Spanish speaker, it's hard to kind of get into the technology speak as well. I don't know if Mariel, if you feel the same way on that point.
Definitivo, y aquí en la isla nosotros de por sí hablamos Spanglish. Es una combinación, yo creo que es de los pocos lugares donde tenemos el idioma tan y tan mezclado, así que sí, aquí nosotros trabajamos sorpresivamente todos nuestros contratos, todos nuestros documentos en inglés, pero en el día a día hablamos español, así que es una locura.
Yeah, and so for those that don't know, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory or Commonwealth. So English is very prominent in the island, but obviously we have our Spanish speakers as well. So depending on how it runs through, you could switch from one to the other or combine, as you mentioned, a lot of the times in a day-to-day basis. The other thing I was going to mention for Rick, and this is what helped me for me, is that for those that are Spanish speaking and heard me speak Spanish, they're like, this fool doesn't speak Spanish. And you are correct, because I am English speaking first, and I learned Spanish later down in my teenage and my adult life, and that's for the mere fact, and this is a cultural thing, and Maria probably will understand this from probably some of her colleagues and friends, is because I was in the States. If my parents both are from Puerto Rico, if they wanted to say things that they didn't want the kids to know, they would say it in Spanish. So that's how that ended up working for me. Didn't work in my favor, but I ended up hobbling along to know as much as what I know now. So for those that are Spanish speakers, perdón, I didn't claim to say I was Spanish speaking, but I just know I can be deadly enough with it. But anyway,
Paco speaks true Spanglish.
True Spanglish for
true
real.
Spanglish.
But at the Maria, so we referred to being able to support a remote workforce, and really understanding how to really do that support. Have you found it to be difficult, or and because I think this is a 2-pronged question, right? ¿Cuándo fue, cuando COVID en el año de 2020, as tragic as that situation was, did you find que el negocio de ustedes had grown to try and at least appeal to a lot of that, and trying to at least keep all the negocios, the businesses going, while everyone was trying to figure out how to work remote? Just curious on how that was in the island.
Sí, definitivo. Yo creo que para todos el COVID, ¿verdad? Fue bien fuerte. Obviamente nosotros en la industria de tecnología teníamos muchas herramientas, ¿no? Para
Mhm.
poder trabajar con eso.
Mhm.
El proceso de nosotros realmente fue bastante fácil. Nos adaptamos muy rápido, los muchachos también, y pudimos ayudar a todas estas empresas que necesitaban realmente hacer esa transición, porque algunos de ellos no estaban listos, así que tuvimos que correr para que entonces ellos pudieran continuar operando sus negocios.
Yeah.
Nos ha enseñado muchísimo. Yo creo que a todos, por lo menos a nosotros, la parte de comunicación ha tenido que mejorar, claro. Los seguimientos entre nosotros, el poder fomentar una cultura estando a distancia, pues yo creo que ha sido de las cosas más complicadas, ¿no? El mantener esa cultura de empresa dentro
Mhm.
de ¿verdad? Que cada cual está en su área, pero
So,
sí, así fue como nosotros lo trabajamos.
está bien. And so, obviously by you saying que, lo negocio, it was a strong situation that occurred and really imposing on a lot of people. And like you said, none of the negocios were ready. Like this is just something that happened overnight. My question for you is that so not only were they not ready, pero were they accepting and were they willing to aprender los nuevos cambios que cambias de voy a tener en el futuro que trae, whether fue, because I think we were just so in an unknown situation, si este voy en un poco semana, un poco mes o de año, depending on the time, how long it was going to take, were they willing to adapt to that change? Or did you find that some were, todo, it's going to come back to the way it was antes?
Pues mira, yo pienso que hubo de ambos, pero vi más aceptación de más personas.
Mm,
Yo creo que como fue algo que nos pasó de repente,
mm,
la gente simplemente se vio obligada. Y yo pensé, ¿verdad?, que iba a haber más resistencia, pero por lo menos aquí en Puerto Rico, mucha gente aprovechó la oportunidad para seguir,
mm,
continuar en esa ola del cambio y aprovechar, ¿verdad?, las ventajas que eso nos trae hoy día al poder operar los negocios. Sí, hubo resistencia, pero yo creo que fue de mínimo de los clientes. La realidad es que sí. Pudimos ayudar un montón y digo, hay clientes, ¿verdad?, que siempre están un poquito reacios, pero en su gran mayoría fue bueno para todos.
That's good. Yeah, same experience that we had here. Is actually the reason why we grew so big, And so in 2020, so at that time, fui 7 años de mi negocio, and it was only me. And so once shelter in place happened and COVID, we ended up growing to 5 employees by the next 4 months after that. And so and I always say that as an unfortunate time COVID was, it really made the need for us to expand to offer those services as well. Rick, during that time, did you find that really trying to gain um, the buy-in from the business, because as we're trying to provide the strategies and figure out how we're going to defend the livelihoods of everyone, right, their businesses, our businesses, trying to figure out this new norm, were they accepting during the time of COVID to try and adhere to some of those changes, or did you find some of those were resistant as well?
Well, you get both, but I would say the majority was very accepted because it was the only way they could work, right? They still needed to make money. So,
Right.
they needed to run their business. So, this is when I think for us in our industry, we became more of they understood the value of what we offer, right? Because now we rely, every business is at least 50. I'd like to say 90, but let's just say 50 to be safe. 50% they rely on technology for everyday usage for everything they do. And when you take that away, you get you get people in a real panic because let's be honest, people don't use the phone anymore like they used to, or they don't write, they don't, a pen and a paper is something,
Right.
if you're a doctor and you have to intake someone with a pen and a paper now, they're going to go nuts. They can't put it in the computer and read it for later. So what we do, excuse me, became more of a value, and everyone got to understand it. So that made a huge difference, and it makes it, for the most part, for those who went through it and understood the hardships, it made them understand throughout the future as we implement or attempt to implement new things, new technologies, new processes, that it may that is more important than just the dollar that they're attaching to what it cost or the little bit of headache it might cost to make the changes. Now, Mario, I was going to ask, as things have, and I use this word loosely because we're same way here, kind of normalized. Are you finding that the majority have, kind of stayed in that remote environment?
Pues mira, yo he visto más que se han ido moviendo al tema híbrido. Sí hay muchas compañías que hemos visto remotas, pero yo creo que el 90% ya ha vuelto a utilizar ambas cosas.
Okay,
Gotcha.
Paco, translate that last part. Missed the last part.
Yeah, no, basically, I think it's the point of where, yes, there's a lot of businesses that have stayed remote, but I think 90% have either invested in some type of infrastructure, whether that's going back to the offices, maybe relocating to smaller locations, but there is a call now that everyone is trying to figure out a way to be together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Mariel, so, kind of going into, and thank you for giving us a lot of the color to kind of how the business down in the island. I was just curious for us. And then, because I think everyone just assumes everything is the same all around. And so wanted to really figure out that process. But, I think we had talked before, and our mutual friend, Mariel Verges in New York as well. For those that were at TechCon, you had met Mariel over at Expertex. Now, we were talking and you were kind of explaining to us how in the island, managed services is a new concept, right? And, with anything that's new, for us, here it's been cloud and now it's AI and how do we kind of figure all that parts out? When we were having our conversation in Channel Futures in the next Gen 101 panel or in the roundtable, you were kind of really explaining on how there's a heavy piece of education, but also just to really explain to businesses what you do. Can you share a little bit? We're going to dive right into just, how are some effective sales strategies, but really, I think the first part, and we've talked about this before when in our previous podcast, is what have you done to really understand your audience? How have you been able to identify some of these things? And is that by targeting specific industries? You only look at certain industries? Can you explain a little bit about how what value-based selling or what steps you've taken to, just to entiende más del negocio que you all are supporting?
Definitivo. Pues sí, Paco, como mencionas, sorpresivamente para mí, cuando comencé en la industria, yo realmente había escuchado bien poco de lo que eran los MSP, como que aquí en Puerto Rico pues sí era un concepto bastante reciente. Y cuando empecé a ver que íbamos a ver clientes y la gente no entendía el concepto, pues fue un poco shocking para mí y entonces ahí tuve que cambiar la estrategia y ver de qué manera nosotros podíamos comenzar a educar a los clientes aquí en Puerto Rico para que entendieran realmente ese valor, ¿verdad?, que trae a la mesa un MSP. Yo creo que fue y todavía es fundamental, ¿verdad?, para nosotros. A través de, nosotros lo hemos hecho a través de newsletters, ¿verdad? Ha sido bien bueno el engagement que hemos tenido para clientes tanto existentes, ¿verdad?, como base de prospectos acá. A través de distintos eventos que se han hecho en la isla, Lunch and Learns, eventos también in person, contenido en las plataformas digitales, dando ejemplos reales de cómo esto ha ayudado y esto nos ha ayudado mucho a que los clientes en las diferentes industrias se identifiquen. Yo creo que es bien importante eso, los casos de éxito. Y sí, ha sido un trabajo que todavía no para. Yo creo que en los últimos 3 años he visto más fuerte el concepto de managed service aquí en Puerto Rico, que la gente ya ha empezado, ¿verdad?, a entender que necesitan algún tipo de ayuda
Sí.
en el área de IT. Pero de esa manera yo creo que es que nosotros hemos entrado a poder primero educar al cliente para luego entonces poder vender algún servicio. Y ha sido de esa forma.
Ok. Now, tengo muchas preguntas porque hay un dice que yo say a lot que yo quiero to unpack it all, right? Y hay uno le pregunta, tú dije que es un concept que está foreign, right? De managed services. ¿Y por qué es eso? Is it because en el tiempo cuando está enseñando todo lo managed services, is it because they're used to cuando algo está rompido o algo no sirve, puede pagar y ya? Or is it more que ese concept just never translated over to the island at that moment?
Pues mira, yo creo que era más, aquí todo empezó un poquito más tarde, o normalmente las cosas empiezan un poco más tarde, yo creo que en Estados Unidos. Y
Okay.
sí estaban más acostumbrados a utilizar lo del break and fix. Normalmente los
Mm,
clientes, pero ¿por qué nosotros no podemos pagar por hora? ¿Ves?
mhm.
Y entonces, ¿por qué no puedes tener una persona aquí sentada todos los días en mi oficina? No puede entender cómo remotamente una empresa puede dar un servicio que pueda aportar tanto valor, ¿verdad? Para ellos.
Sí.
Y sí, con eso fue que nos topamos.
Got it. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you because it's to a point where if you don't explain the value and they don't see it, there's something about tangibility. And Rick, we go through this all the time where people are questioning, "Hey, I haven't seen you, so why am I paying you?" But it's trying to explain to them is that no, it's the fact that you haven't seen me is the reason why you're paying me. And really
Awesome.
being able to do so, right? Perfect example, we had a transition that happened from one MSP to another. We referred them out because it just wasn't a fit for us. And we explained all the things that needed to happen. And of course, the MSP, trying to get in hold of the client to make the changes because they didn't give us a lot of the access that we needed at the time. So their emails started acting silly. And so, right away, it's like, well, it's a coincidence that this happened when you transition. You did something. It was like, no, it's the fact that you didn't do something because you didn't correlate into that because again we did all of this in the background so you weren't going to know because our job, and this is the phrase that I like to use all the time, is obviously that not only do we mitigate risk, but our job is to make sure that you're as defensible as possible so that you're not being negligent to your end user. And if I can prove that to you at the moment you request it, I've done my job. And so always tell them all the time, it's like insurance, you want to have it because you're hoping you're never going to need it. Right. And so it's just one of those that it's always a concept to me that's always strange that, understanding the value of a protection, or I shouldn't say protection, of a mitigation is always something hard to explain. Have you had that issue, Rick, where you're still trying to figure out how to explain the value to a client and they just are not getting it?
Of course. And it's the same thing. And I think trying to use the insurance metaphor is kind of the best way to do it. But we have to tell them it's like having insurance, but there's work being done in the background, because I think what clients miss is that they think they pay us, we put something on the machine and that's it. And the only time we really address anything is when they call or put in a ticket. And I think, what we have to do is we have to do a better job of educating them. And it's not to really say we do XYZ, A through B every day, but we have to do more of a job of telling them these things, like you say, you don't see us, but that doesn't mean we're not working because these things don't run by themselves. We have to make constant tweaks and changes and fixes in the background that you don't necessarily see, but that's what's important, right? You don't want to see it. You don't need us to be so intrusive, particularly when you're trying to work. Our job is to make sure you can work without being interrupted. And that's the important translation, or for lack of a better word, given what we're doing here, the way we're doing this podcast, maybe the best way. It's the important translation we have to give to them to get them to understand what actually is happening or what we actually do.
Right. No, I totally agree. Really trying to do education is such a hard piece because, for a lot of us that are trying, they often say that if you can't explain something well, you don't understand it yourself, right? And really trying to dive into that whole piece. Now, Mariel, you had mentioned, how you've really helped with the educación of your businesses. You focused on like newsletters and lunch and learns and things of that nature. How have you decided on what topics or what things to feature on these newsletters that you feel would drive home for the negocio? Is it more of the fact of something that you feel like, hey, I think these clients need this, so we need to educate them on this particular item? Or have you heard from just conversating with your peers, networking, that there's this specific need and you found that that's an opportunity to create that campaign to really drive forward? I'm curious on how you've done that over at Onuvo.
Pues mira, realmente ha sido de ambas partes. A mí me gusta mucho preguntar a los clientes internos qué cosas a ellos les gustaría entender, de qué temas les gustaría conocer más. Y creo que también en la misma industria, como dices, ¿no? Hablando entre nosotros mismos con otros MSP, no de la isla solamente, sino que también de afuera, entendiendo qué les ha funcionado a ellos y poniendo los otros en práctica también. Yo creo que esas han sido las maneras. Igual nosotros hemos escogido tópicos que creemos que son importantes, que la gente los conozca y punto, y hemos hecho pruebas. Luego también creo que fundamental hacer encuestas de satisfacción y de ahí mismo pedir recomendaciones a las personas. ¿Te ha gustado este tópico? ¿Te gustaría escuchar más sobre esto? ¿Qué otros temas te gustaría conocer? Y las mismas personas también nos han traído, ¿no? Cuáles son esas necesidades o cuáles son esos temas importantes que ellos quieren entender.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that, really being able to, I own libro que se llama, and it's escaping me right now. I think it's They Ask You Tell, or algo así, de Marcus Sheridan, se llama el author. What is it?
You're talking about they ask you answer, right?
You answer. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so we'll have the link in the show notes. But it's an entire blueprint on how to build your entire essentially knowledge base for both internal and external, for both not only an inbound a marketing lead engine, but also on how to proactively approach your prospects with sales, and really just weeding out those that are tire kickers, really trying to figure out from that aspect, and things of that nature. So really being able to go through that. One additional question, Maria, before we go into take a quick break is, as for those that are starting out, porque hay mucho listeners son either solamente haciendo todo lo cosas en MSP, or may only have an employer or two. How are you kind of approaching lo preguntas de todo lo negocio? How are you approaching all the questions to your clients? Do you have a set of questions and your account managers are doing this through their quality business reviews? Are you just trying to reach out to them to spend some time? Are you taking them out to lunch? How are you really inquiring and preguntando todos los negocios on what's affecting them or qué problemas ellos tienen para hacerlo educación content por the newsletter y todo otro webinars, lunch and learns, etc.?
Para los clientes de nosotros sí, yo pienso que a través de los assessments que hacemos anuales, yo creo que es súper importante sentarnos, tomarnos el tiempo, hablar con ellos, preguntarles cómo ha sido el servicio. Yo creo que esas son cosas claves porque es donde, o sea, ¿quién mejor que nuestros mismos clientes para decirnos, verdad? Cómo se sienten, qué cosas están bien, qué cosas están mal, dialogando, teniendo esa apertura, constante comunicación. Yo creo que para mí esa ha sido la clave de todo, o sea, con los clientes. Yo soy bien celosa con mis clientes. Igual yo pienso que también el trato, ¿verdad? Que les damos, pensando que todos los clientes son igual de importantes. Y sí, aquí por lo menos nosotros utilizamos ¿verdad? Tenemos una estructura para esos reviews que se hacen anualmente con los clientes, y ya hay unos tópicos, ¿verdad?, que siempre se tocan y que debemos estar pendientes, ¿no?, para que esos clientes estén satisfechos.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean, you said it best. I think it's you have to set the time, you have to make the effort to be able to do so. You said that on your annual review, really just understanding more than just, hey, here's what we're doing, but really understanding what's going on, what are the issues, and really diving into that. And obviously, you've developed that interview questionnaire with them to figure out a little bit more in detail of going from there. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsor here, Huntress, and what they got going on over there. Over the last 7 years, my MSP has partnered with Huntress as our go-to security platform, detect suspicious endpoint activity, and uncover hidden adversaries. If you've heard recently on several tech news outlets and subject matter experts, they're all saying the same thing. You have to have an EDR. That's why we've partnered with Huntress. I cannot tell you how many times we've onboarded a client through the agent on and all the fun that we found for us to clean up. It's no wonder why Huntress has been awarded one of the leading security solutions by G2. You'll hear comments like peace of mind or Huntress, the company that has your back. It's all thanks to their experts in their 24/7 SOC. It's the needed second set of eyes that we need. Not to mention, you receive detailed incident reports packed with expert insights written for all skill levels. To find out more, head over to huntress.com/unplugged for a trial so you can deploy in minutes with zero user disruption. Tell them that we here at MSP Unplugged sent you. All right. Thank you to our friends at Huntress. And as you mentioned, they've been a great partner for us at Prodigy Techs for the past 7 years. I can't believe when I was trying to look that up, they're like, would you mind saying how long you've been with us? I was like, yeah, shouldn't be. Oh, it's been 7 years. So, but yeah, no, totally great to have them in our stack. One of the vendors that I often say that, I would rather have a partner where literally the CEO and co-founder is hunting bad guys for fun as his like side gig versus running the business. So, and you could just tell what they're doing over there. So definitely appreciate them supporting us here at MSP Unplugged. All right. So, we really dove into obviously the educating of the clients. We had really talked about, some of the media things that we can do on marketing side. Now, Mariel, as far as, there's so many things that there's, and this is the thing, let me try and rephrase how I want to say this, but, there's so many things that you can do as an MSP on a marketing way to provide the leads to then be able to do the sale. I often think that this is something where a lot of MSPs go into this blindly, and they usually try to either do a couple social media posts, they'll, send out a couple newsletters, and it doesn't work. So they move on, they keep moving on to the next thing, right? And they're not providing the consistency. What was the first thing that you did at Onuvo that you felt really gave you a lot of traction, or una cosa que you were able to see the ROI, not so much the ROI, but you saw el impacto that provided to the MSP? It was able to tell you, okay, if this that we're doing, we're hearing voices, we're hearing engagement, we're doing that. We need to do a little bit more. Is there something that sticks out to you that you said, when we started doing this was really helpful, and that allowed you to kind of expand on your strategy?
Sí. Pues bueno, sí, son varias cosas. Definitivamente en el caso de nosotros, yo creo que la consistencia ha sido clave. A veces los negocios simplemente tumban la estrategia o terminan con la estrategia antes de tiempo, y estas cosas, ¿verdad? Para que te den un resultado realmente tienes que ser bien consistente y tienes que mantenerte por un periodo largo de tiempo para realmente ver el valor. Así que por lo menos nosotros a través de LinkedIn creo que ha sido tremenda herramienta. Yo se la recomiendo a cualquier MSP, o sea, que se enfoque bastante en la plataforma. Al menos a nosotros sí nos ha traído resultados. Hacer conexiones a través de la misma red, ¿verdad? A eventos dentro del mismo LinkedIn con otras personas, ¿no?, de la industria, como esto que estamos haciendo ahora. ha sido súper bueno. Otra de las cosas que también nos ha funcionado ha sido los e-blasts. Fuimos incorporando, ¿verdad? Un programa y eso ha sido muy bueno. Hemos lanzado algunas ofertas a través de IBLAS y eso son cosas que nos ha traído retorno, pero lo mayor, yo creo la mejor oportunidad y la más grande ahora mismo que yo veo es LinkedIn.
Sí,
LinkedIn
no, and I have to agree with you 100% porque, and it's funny because hay mucha gente que, and I understand, pero ellos se creen que LinkedIn es para haciendo resumes o para coger un job. Mucha gente se cree que eso de LinkedIn voy a hacer eso, pero no, ellos saben que hay muchas cosas que puede hacer con LinkedIn. Uno, el primero es que, ellos está, cuando LinkedIn acquired ¿cómo se llama? Linda Training, Linda algo así. Ahora está LinkedIn Learning, pero, eso fue una cosa que ahora ellos pueden tener todo la educación, content que ellos quieren, de todos los topics que quieren aprender. Pero la cosa es que cuando Microsoft compró a LinkedIn, eso que nadie sabe el poder que puede para sacar todo lo valor que tú dije en ese platform, right? And really what it is that in LinkedIn, it is the most connected data source, in my opinion, that you can receive, that everyone is trying to link in, and that Microsoft integrates that platform integrates LinkedIn into it. So if you ever go into your Outlook, you can see the contacts and all that type of stuff. But their sales navigator is probably one of the most powerful tools that we have used, not only for prospecting, but like you said, solamente is connecting and really establishing those relationships and personal, especially going to networking events and knowing who they are. And the sales navigator for us, because I belong to a council que se llama the Executive Latino Council, y es como un BNI. For those that don't know, BNI is a Business Networking International. I think that's what it stands for. And it's a group that meets every week, and normally it's a subject matter expert in that group, and there can only be one. So if it's a real estate agent, it can only be one real estate agent. If it's an insurance agent, it can only be, et cetera, et cetera. So we have one similar to a council that I sit on, but we're all basically Latinos running into the same industries. And so what's great is, we've gotten together with the sole purpose of providing referrals to each other. So if we find a prospect, or I see a prospect on LinkedIn, I go to the sales navigator, and it'll actually provide you the list of, hey, here are people that can introduce you to this person. And it's like, oh, well, great. Or if you have a list that maybe you went to, we had through our annual celebration at a yacht party. So we have the attendee list of the yacht party, but instead of making it a salesy thing and haciendo todos los emails into a newsletter and saying, hey, sorpresa, it's us, IT services. No, what we do is that we basically ask to have those relationships, connect with them, tener un café or un poquito de cafecito en some crackers con un poquito de guava. So, really trying to get more into a relationship-based portion as well. Now, Mariel, you had mentioned something else, and I didn't understand. I couldn't translate it. Could you tell me what was the second thing you mentioned in English, what it had translated to?
Ok, yo mencioné la parte de LinkedIn y también I also mentioned we did email campaigns.
Oh, email campaign. Okay, yeah, that was what it was. Yeah. So that's, again, showing my true colors of my Spanglish, that I cannot truly translate everything, but yes, the email campaign. Now, with email campaigns, I think a lot of people tend to not understand that really an email campaign should be really a journey, right? They set up these automations. They think they're really talking at people versus really diving in. How have you leveraged the voice of Onuvo in the newsletters? Are you using a third-party service to help you with that? Are you doing that in-house? And if you are using a third-party service, how do you bridge that that understanding of what you're trying to get out of it? Because I often have heard where when you hire a marketing agency, it's very difficult to try and translate the voice and what you're trying to get as an output. Can you explain a little bit about how have you done to work with that third-party service and how to maintain el voz de the MSP?
De MSP. Pues mira, ahora mismo nosotros no trabajamos con ninguna firma. Sí tenemos
Okay.
third parties para el contenido, ¿verdad?
Oh, okay.
Y utilizamos diversos third parties de la industria de MSP para tener ese contenido. Lo que se hace es que entonces lo revisamos y creamos una agenda según los temas que a nosotros nos parecen más interesantes, igual, ¿verdad? Con el público, la clientela que tenemos aquí, a donde nos queremos enfocar, y entonces de ahí diseñamos esa estrategia. El contenido, ¿verdad? Se evalúa y entonces se le da el tono de nosotros y básicamente lo hacemos nuestro. Y básicamente también no complicando las cosas, sino haciéndolos y en la marcha entonces ir ajustando lo que no nos ha funcionado, medir a través de también diferentes plataformas, HotSuite, hay distintos, ¿verdad?, mecanismos para nosotros ver qué cosas han sido buenas, qué cosas no han sido buenas, y también ha sido bien importante ir creando la lista, esa lista de contactos de email poco a poco. Todo, nada pasa de un día para otro, así que realmente sabemos que hay que tener paciencia con esto. Es bien importante ir limpiando esa data a través de los eventos que vamos, ir recopilando realmente información que sabemos que va a ser buena para esa lista, para construir esas listas que sean unas listas buenas para tener un buen retorno de leads. Así que básicamente ha sido así. Todavía sí creo que ya próximamente queremos trabajar con una firma, pero en la actualidad no lo hemos hecho. Sí, para eventos contratamos, ¿verdad?, personas que nos ayuden a diseñar y a crear conceptos nuevos, pero para el tema de promoción en las redes no lo hemos hecho todavía. Ha sido difícil porque todas las personas que conseguimos para esto no están en Puerto Rico, o sea, para marketing de MSP, y entonces todo el contenido de todas formas es en inglés. O sea, eso es uno de los retos que hemos encontrado nosotros, ¿verdad?, aquí en la isla. O sea, que todo el contenido, y ahora mismo nosotros trabajamos el contenido de las redes en inglés. Sí. Así que esos son retos que por lo menos hemos tenido aquí.
Sí, sí, sí. No, fue mucho cosas para explicar en eso, pero yeah, there's so much. So basically, you know, obviously you're not working with a firm for the mere fact that, and again, it translates to what we have this issue over here too. But what you mentioned specifically is not only does the firm, you know, trying to work with an external firm is difficult because not only are you trying to capture a voice that is not your own, but for the issue you're running into is that it's all English content that is not really relevant English content to the island. It's English content that's happening really more in the States, right? So, you know, you can't, it's the same thing. Like we hired a marketing firm, casi, probably 10, maybe about 7 years ago, and maybe 8 years ago. And we only did residential services at the time, but all of the information and content was business content, and I couldn't use it. So I was paying for something that had no value to me. And so, although not the same thing, but also translates of you really want to do your due diligence to understand what you're trying to do. You also mentioned really utilizing, obviously, digital marketing, right? And really in understanding how to cultivate particular topics. And you mentioned Hootsuite, that you're actually using Hootsuite to monitor kind of the things that are going on, whatever's good, whatever's bad, what is relevant. And that's how you're translating all those to your clients, whether that be in social media, whether that be an email, or developing email campaigns, really helping to cultivate a lot of those things as well. You know, for you, Rick, I know we've had behind the door conversations of marketing agencies that we have both used. Some better than others. Some just required a lot more input and effort on our part as we were running the businesses by ourselves at the time, or don't have a sales or marketing department responsible for that. Can you share a little bit about your feelings, not only on marketing agencies for yourself and what your experience is, but for those that are really trying to figure out what's the best way to do so? How is the best way to leverage something like that if someone is using them or looking to do?
Well, one of the challenges I think we all find is it goes back to what Mariel was saying. When, you know, they're speaking to a general audience necessarily and not necessary to our audience. Now, it's the same thing that it works for us. Who you target in Chicago, who Mariel targets in Puerto Rico, who I target here in New Jersey, we all speak it, we speak a different language per se, or we're speaking to a different group, right? So I think what I've found is, you and I've had this conversation, general marketing agencies that say, hey, we market for MSPs, they can't. Like they market for the general audience of everyone, right? And they don't necessarily, quote unquote, speak our language. So that becomes very, to say the least, unhelpful. Now, there are others who niche that down. I'm just going to give a shameless plug out to our friend Tahir Hamid at MSP Camp, the way that is done. But whoever you're using, it needs to be something where you are in control of it and not them. And that reason being, you can probably take the concepts they're using, translate it down to what you need or who you're targeting. And that does require more work on your end, but it makes it, it actually helps you because you hit your audience. You cannot take, I guess, the general vanilla content they give you and just send it out. And that just doesn't help you. And we've all experienced that. And I'm sure anyone who's listening to us has tried it, and they're getting this, they have the same result, the same conclusion. They have to break it down to who they are targeting and how they hear it, right? What is those situations unique to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it provides a lot of perspective on, you know, a lot of marketing agencies should be leading with education, and there is some learning opportunities in that education that they can provide you. As you mentioned, Tahir Ahmed has said over at MSP Camp that his platform is not for the business owner. You can, if you really are going to provide the effort, but it's for the marketing coordinator.
Right.
Like the marketing coordinator is the one to help implement these campaigns, right? And being able to do so. Tech Marketing Engine, their tech blog builder and newsletter opportunity. They ask you what the topics they want to do and how do they write it to the relevance of what you have it for. These are services that are not doing cookie cutter and canned approaches. They're really trying to approach these things because either they've lived it as an MSP and worked in that fashion, because that's what MSP Camp literally was, the marketing department of an MSP that ended up going full on with MSP Camp. So check them out, msp-camp.com. And then same thing with Matt Rodella, who runs Tech Marketing Engine. But the specific product I'm talking about is Tech Blog Builder. Is he ran an MSP, and so he understands what they're trying to look for and things of that nature. But ultimately, both of these companies provide a huge educational concept and a huge educational platform in various medias, where you don't have to enroll in their platform to understand how to get better and do some of these things as well. So I think it's important to know that, if you're trying to figure out where to start, definitely listen before you invest into a platform like that. But obviously we have our co-signed for Tech Marketing Engine and MSP Camp, because they're good people and they're good friends of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely check them out. But, Mariel, you've mentioned about utilizing digital marketing tools, Hootsuite. Is there any other tools that you feel like you just cannot live without to really help with both your sales or your marketing efforts when trying to either prospect or investigate or learn more? Other than Hootsuite, is there any other tools that you feel like they have to be in my day-to-day arsenal to work with?
Sí, yo diría que para nosotros también Google Analytics,
Okay.
clave, LinkedIn, o sea, sigo mencionando LinkedIn porque es que de verdad pienso que los beneficios son muchos, y pienso que también si estás empezando deberías enfocarte en cosas sencillas, en hacer un plan simple y hacerlo de manera continuada por un periodo de tiempo y luego ir escalándolo. No te compliques, no te estreses. Lo más importante es estar allá afuera, que la gente sepa quién tú eres, que vean tu cara y luego entonces hacer, porque a veces nos enfocamos en que tenemos que lanzar una campaña, tenemos que hacer este diseño, tenemos que... No, empieza con los recursos que tengas a la mano disponibles y poco a poco entonces los escalas. Así que eso ha sido, yo creo que la clave para nosotros realmente, o sea, utilizar lo que tenemos hoy día. Ya.
Yeah. I cannot agree with you more than 100%. And Rick, you've heard me say this phrase before: overanalysis, paralysis. Just do it. Don't make it complicated. Do it simple. No, I didn't say I didn't say it to you. I said that you've heard me say this.
No, I've heard you say it, and it's always in my head because I've been guilty of it, a lot. Just
Yep.
study,
And for those that are,
study,
yep.
and not implement.
And right, because you have to start. You have to figure out one step forward is always going to be better than no steps taken, right? And so for those that are trying to understand or figure out what's the best way to gain subtraction, if you have a LinkedIn page, if you don't, go make a LinkedIn page. And they offer you, I don't remember if it's 250 when you first sign up or if it's 100 and then it grows to 250, one of the things. But basically you can invite your connections that are in your personal side, and LinkedIn gives you X amount of credits per month. I have 250. I just don't know if that's the default value now if you create an account, but you can invite people to your page and then again repost the blogs that you have conversational pieces. There's a lot of things that you can do to really go for it. If you listen to the No Fluff marketing podcast, is it No Fluff MSP marketing or No Fluff MSP?
You got it. No Fluff MSP marketing.
The No Fluff MSP marketing podcast. There are plenty of concepts of how to really do certain things just to get started. Understand, get into the motion of things, just do it, right? And so that's going to be a very big thing. And again, I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. You've heard Mariel talk about LinkedIn as well. These are really things that are going to be important to help just grow the attention, get that brand awareness, and effectively create a strategy for you to kind of go from there. We'll go ahead and I guess drop our, let me see here. Yeah. Actually, Mariel, before we kind of round out the show, before we take another break for is there anything that you want to add on that we may not have discussed? Whether that is leveraging other type of ways to engage with clients, or really just any in-depth conversations of how you've done lunch and learns or things of that nature. Anything that you wanted to share in addition that we may not have covered?
Bueno, yo creo que quizás a mí me apasiona el tema de construir relaciones a largo plazo. Yo creo que eso es algo que deberíamos enfocar más y trae mucho valor. Cómo crear esa confianza y esa credibilidad, ¿verdad? Para que esos clientes internos estén satisfechos y a su vez puedan referirte a otras personas. Igualmente, cómo internamente trabajas con el equipo para que esté enfocado a proveer un excelente servicio, porque a veces también nos enfocamos en el tema técnico y al final nosotros somos empresas de servicio y eso se traduce ¿verdad? Al cliente. Ser facilitadores, yo creo que tener eso en la mente, o sea, de cómo ayudar, cómo conocer también nuestros clientes más allá de su negocio, conocer y conectar con las personas que ellos hacen en el día a día. Yo creo que para nosotros también ha sido fundamental eso, crear esas relaciones que nos han durado siendo transparentes, teniendo esa comunicación proactiva con ellos, tratando de anticiparnos al futuro, ¿verdad? De esas necesidades que ellos quizás puedan tener. Y esto se logra nuevamente con la comunicación, con estar presentes, no solamente que nos vean ahí como la gente de Haití que están en el backend trabajando, ¿no? O sea, crear esos lazos y conocer, porque al final nosotros trabajamos con seres humanos y en la medida que conozcamos y entendamos sus dolores del día a día, porque igual esas personas, mira, cómo te miden a ti, cómo yo te puedo ayudar a ser mejor en el día a día de tu rol. Yo creo que eso es clave, realmente para crear esas relaciones a largo plazo que igual te van a seguir trayendo más clientes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Being able to build a relationship, understanding, that, showing that you're reliable, showing that you're responsive, you're transparent, building the long-term relationships to lead to long-term partnerships. You can't be someone in the background. You have to be forefront. You have to, understand that you're not just IT, although we do provide those services and that customer experience, but really understanding you are their partner and how can you help them in all of the roles there, not just, you know, the business owner. How can you help the office manager? How do you build those relationships to not only get those raving fans, but also can they provide those referrals for you as well? And we just did an episode of how to really build the ability of a referral network and a partnership, because a warm referral always tends to be a great relationship down the road, at least for us internally. But you're not going to get there if you're in the background. You have to be there and show that you care, show that you do want to help them with their business. I remember there was one time for a business that, you know, our networking monitoring went off, all their stuff was gone, their phones, things like that. So I couldn't get a hold of them. I didn't know what the story was. I didn't know if it was a power outage, if there was something there. So I showed up at 7 in the morning. Turned out it was a power outage. Met the owner. I was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And talked to the office manager and left. And received a call from the owner, and he says, "Hey, you know, I know I said, hey, how you doing?" But he goes, "I didn't realize you came on your own. Like, I thought we called you." He's like, "I really appreciate you looking out for my business. Like I care about it." And so he now, like, customer for life, you know, unless we really screw up. But the point is that really it was more of how we showed in one effort that we did care and that we viewed them as a business and a partner versus just a check, right? Rick, anything you wanted to add on to that?
No, I think that's awesome, and you know we've talked about that before, and it's just really that is how you show your value and your worth. And like you said, the client realizes they are not just the person you wait on a monthly payment from, right? You know, you showed up, you know, unsolicited because you recognized that there was an issue and you wanted to make sure it got fixed because, you know, it helps them realize, hey, he actually cares about my business, and you know that goes a long ways, like you say. So when he's out bragging about his business or his IT stuff, or his friend on the golf course is telling him, "I've had this issue, I've that," he should say, "I got this guy, he's great," you know, and he'll probably continue to tell that story, which again carries you and Prodigy Text a longer way. So
Right.
and it goes back to the same thing. I'm just going to say this and we'll wrap up here. I'll wrap up here. Is the same thing with LinkedIn. As you're using LinkedIn to make those connections with those businesses and you're putting out content, you may not necessarily get that client today, but if they are seeing what you're doing and they see some value in it, they may come across a time where they need tech services or IT support, or they're not getting it where they currently get it. They're not getting to their satisfaction. And in their mind, hey, I got this friend or this guy
Right.
or this, you know, lady I know who is solving these issues or talking about these issues. Let me look them up and give them a call. And that's where I think we all have to make sure when we make these connections, we purposely, but not directly, I guess is the best way to say this, continue to get content and stay in front of them. And you know it helps you, it helps get your name, your face, your business out there, and subconsciously it's in the back of the client's mind. So when something goes wrong and those buzzwords are going off, they know where they heard them from, and you're one of the people they just consider calling.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think it's just a matter of you have to do this in order. You can no longer just provide IT services and collect the monthly payment. You have to do more. You have to build that relationship. Um, you know, what was your value sale is now a requirement. It's no longer just dressings. This is now this table stakes and potatoes. So, all right, perfect. But with that, Maria, I think we had a great topic and a great conversation that we had from here. You know, a lot of value. Great to understand more about your story and what you're doing there in the Isla. You know, for those that wanted to connect and just know a little bit more about yourself, or just to hear kind of how you're doing things, not only in the island of Puerto Rico, but in your role as sales and marketing director, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you and just to have a chat or just to connect?
Definitivo, pues mira, a mí me pueden conseguir súper fácil en LinkedIn como Mariel Verges. De igual manera pueden conseguir a través de nuestra página en Onuvo. Ahí yo creo que es la manera más fácil y rápida, ¿verdad?, de contactarnos. Estamos a la orden para ayudarles, igual para poder seguir apoyando la industria de MSP, pero también a nosotros los latinos que queremos, ¿verdad?, seguir creciendo en esta industria.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I appreciate you coming out for sure. It was definitely a great time, a little bit different than what we have on our previous episodes. We're curious to hear your feedback. Let us know if we need to do more of these, and definitely we'll look forward to have more of this type and work on my Spanish as well. Rick, any lasting words before we round out the show?
Well, I'm going to go back to where we start. 5th annual TechCon Unplugged is coming up. Go to techconunplugged.com to get your tickets. You don't want to miss it.
That's what he says, but he really does mean it. But also,
I'll hunt you
but
down.
if you like what you hear, tune in every week. Watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can also take us with you on the go. We're on your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. And as Rick said, don't forget to get your tickets over at techconunplugged.com. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.